Ever since the release of Episode 8, the Digital Circus fandom has had a lot to talk about. Spoilers ahead. From the torture sequence revealing the cast's biggest fears, to Kane getting deleted, Queenie being officially seen for the first time, the uncertain future of the circus, Abstrategy hugging, Zubul with paws canon. We got to see Zubul with paws. I've been making fan art for so long of Zubul with paws, and it's finally canon. It's not the point. This isn't a video about Zubul. What I'm trying to say is that Episode 8 has given the fandom plenty to talk about, but one of my biggest takeaways is something that I don't think I've seen anyone else bring up, which is shocking because I thought it was so significant. That being how Episode 8 has seemingly completed Pomni's character development. Now, 2 out of the 3 times I've discussed this topic with my friends in real life, I've actually been asked, wait, what's her character arc again? And you might be asking something similar. Isn't Pomni just the protagonist? Sure, she's silly, anxious, kind, mean, she's got a lot of character to her, but ultimately she's kind of just the everyman, right? And in some ways that's true. Pomni is the straight man of the digital circus. The audience is meant to see this world from her eyes. But if you look closely, there is a lot more to her. In this video, I'll analyze Pomni and how she develops through the series, going by episode basis. In the end, I'll highlight why Episode 8 was the perfect ending for her character arc, and what we can expect going forward into Episode 9. One day, while urban exploring a random building, a young woman finds an old 90s computer and a VR headset. Seemingly out of curiosity, she puts on the headset and finds a colorful video game. She tries to take off the headset, and she can't. She quickly learns she's trapped forever. She doesn't know her real name, and if she gets too stressed about these facts, she might turn into some kind of giant, formless, inhuman monster. And she's given the name Pomni by a weird flying tooth man. Pomni is stuck here, forever. She learns all of this very quickly, and very reasonably kind of has a mental breakdown about it. She tries to find any reason that this isn't real. It's a dream, maybe. Here's the important part. She is so terrified and shocked by the sudden revelation that she fails to acknowledge the people around her. Pomni in Episode 1 is self-serving. She is desperate and confused, which leads her to hurt or neglect others. Think about her interactions with the other circus members at this point. None of them feel personal. Compare that to those trademarked TADC therapy talks from later in the series, especially those with Pomni in it. The other characters seek to learn more about the people around them, who they are, what they want, what they're trying to get out of their actions. That doesn't happen in Episode 1, and that's for a good reason, because Pomni doesn't care. Pomni doesn't want to know any of these people she's trapped with. She's only talking to them to figure out what is happening to her. And nowhere is this more clear than after Pomni escapes from an abstracted Kaufmo. After Pomni realizes she's safe, she begins to run away, but remembers that she left someone behind. She considers for a moment, almost leaving again, before turning back to check on Ragatha. Ragatha tells Pomni she's hurt and asks her to go find Kane so he can help her. Pomni agrees and begins to run around the circus calling for Kane, even getting hurt a bit in the process. Now, I know all of that doesn't sound very self-serving of her, but just bear with me here. While Pomni is running around looking for Kane and trying to avoid the abstraction, she sees her reflection for the first time since entering the circus. She sees what she's become. She sees who she's become. And I believe this is the moment it sinks in for her. This isn't a dream. She's really trapped here, and that terrifies her. She's desperate for a way to leave. Now, we learn in Episode 8 that the circus characters are able to conjure things into existence. One example of this is Kinger creating a butterfly, which heals Ragatha and leaves behind these little particles. So, as Pomni is running around the circus, desperate for a way to leave, she suddenly sees an exit door that is leaving behind these little particles. While it's not technically confirmed that Pomni conjures this exit in this scene, it seems most likely that she did, and I think that thematically that works better. That makes more sense. So when Pomni sees this door, she has a choice to make. She can stay and keep trying to help Ragatha, or she can try to escape. And frankly, she does not hesitate. In my opinion, I don't think this was a conscious choice. I think Pomni was literally so desperate and terrified that she completely forgot about Ragatha. So Pomni chooses the promise of leaving over helping other people. And this is why I chose to describe Pilot Pomni as self-serving rather than selfish. I don't think Pilot Pomni is a bad person. I think she does care about other people, but she's also so terrified and confused that she doesn't have any room to worry for anyone or anything else besides her own anxieties. And, like, honestly, I don't blame her. She's in an insane situation. I would probably be crazy selfish and want to help myself too in her position. Pomni is completely overcome by her own fear and confusion. She runs through doors again and again, so desperate to leave that she cannot stop herself from going through the next one, because that what if rings in the back of her mind. What if this next one is the one that lets me free? So she keeps going. Empty office room after 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 empty office room, until she comes across a desktop and a headset. The exact same one she found, the one that trapped her here, seemingly less than an hour ago. She's confronted with the fact that she did this to herself. If only she hadn't put on that headset in the first place. If only she hadn't ever even entered that building. She continues to run through doors until she physically cannot, stuck in the void. Kane does rescue her and brings her back to the circus, and she sees Ragatha. She had completely forgotten about Ragatha until this moment. She sees how much pain Ragatha is in, and has to face the fact that she in some way is responsible. She abandoned Ragatha, chasing after the exit. Ragatha doesn't even know that Pomni betrayed her, but Pomni does. Hi. Editing Artie here. I can't believe I didn't realize this while I was writing the script, but there's an even better example of Pomni abandoning Ragatha, and that's when she literally abandons Ragatha. Earlier in the episode, Ragatha is all glitched out because she got touched by the abstraction, and Pomni reaches out to help her, and then it makes her hand glitch. And instead of, it's probably painful for her, but Ragatha's literally on the ground, glitching to no end in extreme pain, and Pomni just got a little glitch on her hand, which scared her, so she completely ran away, leaving Ragatha behind, seemingly expecting the abstraction to stay with Ragatha, but it chases her anyways. Yeah, I don't know how I completely forgot about that while writing the script. That's my bad, because that's an even better example than the one I provided. But I guess that just gives more backing to my point. And that's what we learn about Pomni from the pilot. She's a normal person in a crazy situation that is so desperate to leave that she neglects to care for the people around her. That's where Pomni's arc begins. Now let's talk about episode 2. This episode literally opens with us seeing Pomni's worst nightmare. She wanders the circus alone, calling out for the others, but no one is there. She looks around to see that she has begun abstracting. She desperately yells for help, but the ground literally swallows her up, and she plunges into the cellar. She sees the silhouettes of Kane, Ragatha, and Jax, who mock her, with Jax remarking that he can't even remember her name. This is interrupted by Ragatha knocking on Pomni's door to check on her. Throughout the episode, and honestly the first 3 episodes as a whole, Ragatha is trying to befriend Pomni, and Pomni doesn't really engage. Sure, she answers questions and goes along, but she doesn't really show Ragatha the same interest and curiosity that Ragatha shows her. And this applies to a lesser extent for all the circus members too. Pomni reluctantly joins Kane's adventure, seemingly not interested in getting involved at all. That is, until Jax literally throws her out of a moving truck. Pomni wants nothing to do with this, but through a series of shenanigans, she ends up below the map with one of the adventure's NPCs, Gummy Goo. Gummy Goo realizes something about him is different from the players, and asks Pomni to tell him what's wrong with him. This conversation happens off-screen, so we don't exactly know what was said, but Pomni tells him he is an NPC. What we do get to see is afterwards. Pomni realizes how unhappy Gummy Goo is, and asks to talk to him, telling him she doesn't want to just leave him below the map. When he tells her he doesn't matter because he's not real, she opens her mouth to say something very quickly, but doesn't. Instead, she just sits next to him. Then she tells him that she doesn't exactly understand, but she knows what it's like to feel like nothing. She tells him that caring about his friends matters, but he disagrees. He only exists to be an obstacle for the players. And she tells him he doesn't have to be. She invites him to join the circus with her. He asks her, would I even belong? And she tells him that he wouldn't belong any less than her, and that she could use a friend. And it works. Gummy Goo agrees to join the circus. This conversation is Pomni's first real connection within the circus, her first friend in the circus. When she joined, she felt like her life didn't matter anymore, like she had basically died, but then she met someone who felt the same way, and she could see herself in him, and it made her realize something. If this NPC Candy Gator is able to feel, what stops him from being real? If Pomni can still feel, what stops her from being real? She knows who she is, and that is what makes her real, and this conversation with Gummy Goo lets her realize that. So Gummy Goo comes back with her to the circus. He's really excited. He looks around. He says, yeah, this place looks nice. I could get used to this. And then...
Looks like one of these guys made it through.
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
Yeah. So then Gummy Goo dies. And Pomni begins to panic again, because who can blame her? Maybe Gummy Goo really was fake. Maybe he really never felt anything. So then what if she really never was real then? But before she's able to go too crazy, she's brought back to reality when she's invited to attend Kaufmo's funeral. She sees Ragatha, Zubul, Gangle, even Kinger mourning someone she never met. And she realizes her feelings, her love, her relationships are what make her real. They made Gummy Goo real too. They made the people around her real. So whether or not Gummy Goo is dead, their friendship, however short, was real. And she can have real friendships with these people too. She doesn't feel quite as alone anymore. And yes, this happens at Kaufmo's funeral. She didn't know who Kaufmo was, but she can see the love that everyone around her had for him. She can see the relationships they had with him. And that's not something that can be made up by a computer. These are real people with real relationships. Who could possibly say that that isn't real? So that's her development in episode 2. In episode 3, Mystery of Mildenhall Manor, for the first, 2/3 of it, it's kind of just Pomni getting very, very scared by this weird horror game she accidentally fell into. But she's alongside Kinger. And when the worst of the horror is happening, Kinger literally shields her. He protects her as best he can before they are dragged down to hell. Kinger warns Pomni not to run through the Hall of the Damned, but she does anyways and literally gets possessed. Little side note, but I ordered the Pomni Animini's pendants when they first came out. I pre-ordered them. I had to wait 3 months, and I was literally saying the whole time, oh, I want any of them except Possessed Pomni. I really don't want Possessed Pomni. She's so ugly. Any of the other ones I'd be so happy with. Guess which one I got? Guess which one I got, guys. Guys, guess which one I got? Guess which one I got, guys. Guys, guess. After she gets unpossessed, Pomni gasps and exclaims that she knew it would end up like this. She exclaims, he just wants me to suffer, which is admittedly vague, but most likely is in reference to Kane. Kinger suggests that they take a moment to rest. Beaten, terrified, and exhausted, Pomni has nothing left to do but curl up and cry. Kinger apologizes for dragging Pomni down the horror route and explains how he is more lucid in the dark, and he reveals that he had a wife in the circus who had abstracted. He tells her that he understands how the circus can feel pointless, but having relationships with others gives it meaning. The only way to stay sane and happy in this world is to cherish your friendships. Pomni admits she's glad Kinger is here for her, and he reassures her that she is strong, and by holding on to her relationships with others, she can certainly get through this. They are able to escape the Hall of the Damned by holding their breath. Inspired by her conversation with Kinger, Pomni goes out of her way to express her appreciation towards Ragatha for always being there for her. This episode's development of Pomni builds upon and expands her lessons from episode 2. She learns the importance of maintaining relationships with the other circus members. She learns to find meaning in this new life by respecting, appreciating, and spending time with those around her. Episode 4, Fast Food Masquerade. So I actually work at a fast food restaurant in real life, and when my friends ask me about what it's like, I say it feels like being a Pomni in episode 4, because I'm not having an especially bad time or anything, but half the people around me are, and also sometimes I see someone I know outside of work, and that's really awkward. So anyways, at first glance, Pomni doesn't do a lot in episode 4, but what she does do is pretty interesting. While every other character has something to say about the proposed fast food adventure, Pomni and Ragatha both remain silent, only reacting to the people around them. That applies to Pomni most of this episode, honestly. I want to point out this little background moment where Pomni looks at the hole Zubul fell into, and then looks at Ragatha, and she just shrugs. I just thought it was cute. Also, Pomni is too short for the cash register, so she has to stand on a box. Look at her little face here. She's so adorable. Oh my god. And just look at the way she says hello to Gummy Goo.
Hello.
She just has a lot of really cute moments in this episode, and I wanted to point that out. Wait a second. Gummy Goo? Yeah, so Gummy Goo is back. Pomni is obviously shocked by this and stumbles over her words when trying to ask if Gummy Goo remembers who she is. He acts as if he doesn't know her and is clearly put off by her odd behavior. Later, she abandons her register duty to crawl across the floor to go see him. Gummy Goo is clearly put off by Pomni's behavior and asks her if they know each other, to which Pomni responds, "I don't know." When Gangle confronts Pomni for abandoning her post, Pomni replies, "But it's Gummy Goo. Can't the job just wait a bit? It's not like any of this is real." Gummy Goo is visibly surprised by Pomni knowing his name and opens his mouth and reaches his hand forward as if he wanted to say something, but he's interrupted by Gangle having an identity crisis. Presumably, Gangle herds Pomni away from Gummy Goo and back to the register. Pomni obviously was both shocked and excited to see her first friend in the circus, a friend she saw die, mind you, back again and right in front of her, only to be greatly disappointed when she realized he didn't remember her. Now, I do have my own theories about Gummy Goo actually remembering her, but for the sake of this conversation, that's not really relevant. From Pomni's perspective, Gummy Goo doesn't not remember her. Later, when Gummy Goo and her friends begin to leave, Pomni abandons post once again in the middle of an order to go see him one more time before he leaves. Pomni begins to start speaking to Gummy Goo, and while we don't know exactly what she was going to say, it's pretty safe to imagine she was going to try and remind Gummy Goo who she was. But then she sees his face. He looks distraught. Pomni has a decision here. She could either tell Gummy Goo who she is and what they went through together, potentially jogging his memory and rekindling their friendship, or she could let him go. Option A would bring back her dead friend, something she obviously wants, but it would also hurt Gummy Goo, learning that he's an NPC all over again, and that he's so disposable that he was already killed, brought back, and likely will be killed again, just for the players to have a character to interact with in whatever game they're playing. Option B would be letting her first friend in the circus leave her all over again, but it would spare him that pain. Pomni takes a moment to think before giving him a kind yet generic fast food hospitality farewell, and as Gummy Goo walks away, she stares sadly after him, and then at the ground. This is the very first test of Pomni's development. She can either be self-serving by reminding Gummy Goo who she is, or self-sacrificial by letting him go. And she chooses to let him go. This test fittingly takes place in episode 4, which is between the beginning of her arc, episode 1, and the end of her arc, episode 8. We are now beginning to see the person Pomni is going to become. She's going to become a person who is willing to give up her own wants and desires if it could benefit others. Later in this episode, Pomni witnesses Gangle step outside, take off her plastic mask, and scream into her palms. She asks Gangle if she's okay, encourages her to talk about, quote, her issues, unquote, with Ragatha. Gangle says she loves Ragatha, but it's sometimes difficult to tell how genuine she is. Pomni tries to continue the conversation, but Gangle interrupts her, puts her plastic mask back on, and leaves. Pomni is left feeling disappointed. She genuinely wanted to help Gangle, but approached it as, quote, another one of these, end quote. A therapy session she was facilitating rather than a genuine conversation with a friend. But Pomni isn't done trying to help. When she sees Gangle later that night, tired, dreading spending another moment at the restaurant, Pomni offers to stay behind and close for her. It's a small gesture, but it was exactly what Gangle needed at that moment. She needed someone to see her, how she really felt, and offer her genuine help and support, not just platitudes and advice. Here, Pomni learns a small but important lesson, one that'll come up later. Help and care isn't always having little DIY therapy sessions and talking about feelings. Sometimes it's quiet. Seeing that someone isn't okay doesn't mean you have to press them to talk about it. Sometimes you just need to be there for them and offer what you can. And we see how much this affects Gangle. Shortly after episode 4 premiered, Glitch released this image. Gangle drew herself and the people who helped her most when she needed it. She drew Zooble, of course. We already know that those two are, really good friends. But she also drew Pomni. This small gesture from Pomni made such a big impact on Gangle that she now sees her as one of her 2 closest friends in the circus. Mind you, Pomni has only been in the circus for like a week max at this point. Pomni in this episode is tested on her development and self-sacrifice, and she learns to offer support to those around her through her actions, even when she can't support them through her words. One thing I want to emphasize is that Pomni becoming less self-serving doesn't mean she needs to become a people-pleaser, accepting anything from anyone. As we clearly see within TADC's writing with Ragatha, that is an issue in and of itself. Pomni's development is about putting her respect and love for others above her own personal desires, which is not the same as people-pleasing, which stems from a desire to be liked. As we see in episode 5, Untitled, Pomni is not afraid to be blunt, sarcastic, or rude if the situation calls for it, and that has nothing to do with her character development. If anything, the closer she gets with other characters and the less self-serving she becomes, the more blunt, sarcastic, and rude she gets, at least compared to the writhing ball of anxiety that is Pomni in the pilot. In episode 5, Pomni is, as usual, not very interested in the adventures, but we do see her taking advantage of any opportunity she can to grow close to the others, and we especially see her develop a friendship with Jax in this episode. It's notable that while she and Jax do get closer in this episode, she never defends his unkindness towards the others. We don't see her reaction to him shooting and chewing the Gangle rhino, but she does vote yes to make him a vegan afterwards, implying she found it distasteful. During the President Pomni section, all the characters seem very willing to accept her authority, except Jax, obviously, though he was the one to suggest the adventure. This will be relevant in a discussion of a later episode. When Jax tries to buddy up with Pomni by gossiping about Gangle to her, she is quick to remind Jax that he threw her out of a moving truck. She might not hate him as much as Zooble, Ragatha, or Gangle do, but she's also not willing to be won over by Jax the way most people in this fandom are. During the stargazing adventure, Pomni expresses relief that there's finally an adventure where she can just relax. She's quick to defend Gangle and Ragatha when Jax speaks unkindly about them, but doesn't outright shut him down. She wants to get close to the people around her, including Jax. When she learns that there is some mysterious backstory related to Jax and some unnamed friends, she doesn't push him to talk about it. She asks once, gets brushed off, and moves on. Pomni is surprised when Jax apologizes for the President adventure, seemingly shocked that Jax is capable of apologizing. Pomni reluctantly forgives Jax, despite Zooble's warning to ignore him. Jax immediately takes advantage of this to brag about his budding friendship with Pomni to Ragatha. When a vote is called by Gangle to put Jax in a maid outfit, Pomni actually votes against it, despite the fact that it came immediately after Jax insulting Ragatha. This is unrelated, but you can also see that Kinger voted yes to maid Jax. I assume he was unaware of what was happening, but I really don't know. I just felt the need to point this out because it was funny, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone else point it out. But that's a little irrelevant. During Pomni's turn to bat, she offers Ragatha her turn. While we learn later that Pomni doesn't like sports, this is still a kind gesture when she wasn't able to console Ragatha with words alone. We see Pomni using that lesson she learned last episode. Additionally, the softball episode introduces Evil Pomni, one of my favorite side characters, which gives us an interesting angle to look at Pomni from. Evil Pomni is simply opposite Pomni, or at least to some degree she is. So let's take a look at who Pomni isn't, so we can get a better look at who Pomni is. Evil Pomni is crass, bold, has bad posture, and is quick to insult others. We can compare these traits to real Pomni, who only curses when under high stress, is meek, has straight posture, and treats others kindly. Pomni grows close with Jax this episode, yes, but she is also kind of treated like an only child in a divorce where both parents were trying to be the favorite to spite each other. We see her making an effort to grow close to others and using the lessons she learned last episode, but we don't see much development from her personally. Episode 6, They All Get Guns, opens right about where the last one left off. Pomni and Jax are hanging out, the two come across Zooble, and in their interaction we see more of the same patterns from the last episode. Jax is a jerk to Zooble, and Pomni doesn't really say anything about it. When it was announced that they'd be having a duo adventure, Pomni sought out Ragatha first, which actually makes a lot of sense. Despite what Ragatha might believe at this point, she is kind of Pomni's closest friend in the circus. Gangle and Zooble were already paired, Kinger is Kinger, and despite their growing friendship, Pomni is aware of how cruel Jax can be. Meanwhile, Pomni and Ragatha are both just genuinely kind people who enjoy each other's company. But Ragatha points out that it's not a good idea for Kinger and Jax to be on each other's team, as Jax would likely torment Kinger, so Pomni is paired with Jax instead. The two grow even closer during their time together. While Pomni isn't really sold on Jax's "we're all just cartoon character archetypes" idea, she's willing to play along for a little bit for the sake of playing what's essentially paintball with her friends. She even learns something about the circus from Jax. She's able to influence the outcomes of events through sheer will. We see this when she's able to shoot better by being confident and cartoony than when she was actually trying, as well as the insane trick shot she uses to take down Zooble. Now, we know since episode 8 that this is from the Conjuring thing that Kinger mentioned, but at the time it was a new concept. I'm going to take a little detour here to point something out. Pomni doesn't really like physical touch. We know this because Goose states it outright on Tumblr, but we can also see this in text from Pomni's body language. when other people touch her or almost touch her.
Off we go!
Dollface, I've got a key to his room.
Wait, what? Why? Jump scares that well?
Come on, that wasn't even scary. What? You scared of the vacuum cleaner too?
Hey, be nice to her.
Wow, the first steps of a budding friendship. Right, Ragatha?
I don't really...
Since you're new around here, we're gonna make it a simple in-house adventure!
Pomni is so excited by the fact that she and Jax won that she hugs him. The character who constantly avoids and flinches away from physical contact gives someone a hug. And he pushes her away. And then you guys know what happens. Now, many other people who are much smarter than me have analyzed this scene and broken down every tiny detail. And this is an analysis of Pomni's character development, not of Pomni and Jax's relationship, so I'll keep this brief. Jax both literally and figuratively pushes Pomni away from him, insisting that he is nothing but a bad person who bullies others for fun because acknowledging that he truly hurts people is too painful for him. And Pomni completely sees through this act, but she's also seen the lengths he's willing to go to keep it up. So what does Pomni's relationship with Jax teach her? Pomni learns that some people won't accept help or love, that no matter how hard you push to become close with someone, it's ultimately up to them to receive it, and sometimes they simply won't. Pomni learns to give space to those who cannot accept others growing close, but never leave them alone. Think of Kinger's speech in this episode.
The way I see it, relationships are two-sided, and sometimes it doesn't make sense to do all the heavy lifting when the other isn't in the mood. We all go through and deal with things differently, and sometimes you just need to let people do things their own way, as long as you're still there when they need you. Giving someone space should never be the same as giving up on them.
Not only does it apply to Ragatha, it also is what Pomni learns from Jax. She learns to love from afar, never letting go of Jax completely but allowing him to refuse her friendship. Episode 7, Beach Episode, lets us see so much from Pomni. For the first section of this episode, it's emphasized how close Pomni has grown to the other circus members, especially Gangle, Ragatha, and Zooble, but we see her playing with Kinger too. Learning from last episode, Pomni is giving Jax some space. Pomni is enjoying her time at the beach until she sees an NPC mannequin hiding in the bushes and beckoning her towards him. She actually saw this mannequin before in episode 5, but here is her first opportunity to actually interact with him. We don't get to see their conversation on the screen, but as far as we can tell, he told Pomni he was a human like her, or at least not an NPC, and that he has a plan to leave the circus. But in order to tell her, they must be away from Kane's prying eyes in the Chinese room. Either Ragatha, Zooble, and Gangle were with Pomni when this happened, or she filled them in afterwards. At some point, someone suggests that they go find Jax and ask for his help entering the Chinese room. When the Chinese room is open, Pomni goes to get Kinger, but Abel stops her, telling her that they can fill him in later. His excuse is that he and Kinger have a history that Abel isn't ready to face yet. Pomni is hesitant to leave him out, but ultimately doesn't argue. Here's where we see the beginning of Pomni's character regression. It's subtle, but it is there. Pomni's interactions with Abel in this episode consistently look something like this, and please ignore my poor attempts at character voices. I know a way out of the circus. I'd love a way out. Let me include my friends, too. You cannot include one of your friends. But I'd really like to. You can't. Okay. Throughout this episode, especially in conversations with Ragatha and Pomni, Kinger's wisdom and trustworthiness is constantly brought up. It's clear the two really care about him and don't like leaving him out. When Abel insists that leaving Kinger out of the plans is good, Ragatha and Pomni do push back. They tell Abel he needs to tell them what's going on, but he dodges the question and they don't push any further. When Abel and Kinger do finally see each other, nothing really happens. Kinger makes no remark about Abel being there, and Abel doesn't really react to Kinger. Jax is hesitant about entering Kane's office, but he is easily reassured by Pomni, who doesn't hesitate to try and comfort him. When all the characters join hands to walk down the final hallway, she offers a hand to Jax. One last offering of friendship before they leave the circus. And he refuses. Pomni is given a simple choice when she sees the console. Press the red button or the blue button. Stay or leave. And she doesn't press anything. The other players urge her to press the escape button, seemingly unspokenly agreeing that she should represent them. This is one of the biggest signs of her development. Pomni in the pilot, even from the first few episodes, would have pressed the button right away, no hesitation. She checks what Kinger thinks, but before the circus members are able to come to a unanimous decision, Jax slams the red button, and it's revealed that all of this was an adventure. Pomni in this episode is tested once again. She's offered the promise of escape, but she has to exclude Kinger to reach it. And she does, repeatedly, until the very end. She tries to reach out, but it's too late, and she realizes her mistake. If Pomni had included Kinger from the very beginning, she likely would have found out the adventure was fake sooner, but instead she let the promise of potentially escaping lead her away from what she knew was right. And finally, episode 8, hjsakldfhl, lets us see Pomni acting with all the lessons she's learned. She tells all the cast members to give up hope of leaving the circus and to instead focus on supporting each other. This is her development in her own words. She had to give up chasing her own desires, escaping the circus, to focus on what she really needs, loving and supporting others. But she needs to show this in more ways than just words, and she does just that. When Kinger devises a plan to stop Kane from tormenting the players, it requires Pomni to find him a computer, and she knows just where to look. And here we have a beautiful parallel to that first exit door scene. This is the scene that inspired this entire video, a perfect chance to compare Pilot Pomni and Pomni at the end of her arc. Pomni returns to where she first saw the mirror. She stares at who she's become familiar with, the new her. This could lead her to spiral again, but she shakes away any doubt or fear. She doesn't have time to waste worrying about her situation. Her friends need her. She closes her eyes and summons the exit door again, no longer fueled by desperation or confusion, but self-assured and determined to help her friends. And the door appears. The scene of Pomni running through the C&A office is nearly a shot-for-shot remake of the scene from the pilot. The only real difference is her body language. While Pomni in the pilot was terrified and driven by a need to escape, running wildly with desperation, Episode 8 Pomni walks with a calm and determined speed, motivated by a desire to help her friends. She's no longer anxious and hyperventilating, but steadfast and a bit annoyed by the long walk. When she finally comes to the desktop, she considers the headset briefly. While there's no way to know what she was thinking, I imagine she was thinking about putting it on. What if it set her free? What if? But the circus starts to shake, and she's reminded of her friends who are in danger. She doesn't have time for what ifs. She picks up the desktop and leaves. She won't let what ifs rule her life anymore. She needs to help her friends. When Kinger is coding, it is vital to keep Kane distracted. If he checks on Kinger, the entire plan could fall apart, and he almost does just that. But Pomni steps in. She insults Kane in the way she knows will hurt him most. The same Kane who's been torturing her endlessly. She makes him angrier than he's ever been and put herself directly in harm's way to save Kinger. All of this comes to a head when Kane is deleted. The players fall to the ground, look at where Kane was, and then they all look at Pomni. When I first noticed this, I couldn't unsee it. And it's everywhere. It's in episode 7 when the others expect her to press the button on their behalves. It's in episode 5 when they all accept her authority as president. Pomni connects all of them together. No one thought of Kinger as anything but a crazy old man until Pomni got there. No one expected Ragatha to show genuine non-people-pleaser kindness until Pomni arrived. No one had managed to get as close to Jax since Ribbit's abstraction as Pomni did. No one truly offered Gangle the help she needed until Pomni did. Pomni is trusted by everyone in the circus because she learned to reach out and make connections more than seek her own escape. She became their unofficial leader. She became the heart of the circus. And until episode 9 releases in June, that's where we end. So if Pomni's character development is so expertly written, then why doesn't anyone talk about it? Because it's so expertly written. Pomni isn't seeking lessons in friendship and writing letters to Princess Celestia. She's experiencing the world around her, slowly learning more and more the more time she spends, just like the audience. We see the digital circus through Pomni's eyes and grow alongside her as we watch the series. We go from seeing the people around Pomni as mere silly cartoon characters in the pilot, before growing to see them for who they are, building connections with them, and feeling every hit against them as if they're our own, exactly as Pomni does. Pomni has gone from self-serving, neglecting the needs of those around her for the fleeting promise of an exit, to actively putting herself in harm's way for a chance to save her friends. She has become beloved by those around her, whether they'll admit it or not. Pomni has proven herself to be kind, brave, strong, empathetic, and generous. So what does any of this mean for episode 9? What can we expect from a circus that no longer has a ringmaster? While there's no way of knowing for sure, I expect we'll see everyone looking to Pomni for answers, and she'll have to deal with the responsibility of being the unofficial leader of the circus now that Kane is gone. In the wise words of my favorite jester, well, it's possible. I want to thank everyone who's watched. I know that sounds corny, that's what all the YouTubers say, but I genuinely do. This is my first time ever making any kind of video essay, and I'm quite excited to see what y'all think about it. My channel kind of crazy blew up recently because I made a compilation of Kane lying. I was not expecting it to get nearly as many views as it did, but it did, and I thought I'd at least take advantage of the attention to talk about something that I think is really interesting and I haven't seen anyone else bring up. I know this is usually the section where YouTubers like shout out their Patreon or I don't know, tell you to go watch their other video essays, but I don't really have any other video essays. You could go watch that compilation I mentioned or any of my Digital Circus edits, but other than that, I don't really have anything else on my channel I think you might be interested in. But I could maybe be convinced to make more video essays if this does well. I do have more to say about episode 8 and certain things I noticed in it that I still haven't seen anyone talk about. I really want to analyze the torture scenes that I mentioned earlier that we see when Kane's torturing people. And there are a few specific lines that really stuck out to me that I think have more meaning than they let on. And I kind of want to talk about them. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in seeing. I'm kind of rambling now, but I just want to thank you again for watching. It really means the world. If you liked this video, please let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. Did you agree, disagree? Any points I made you want to expand on? Anything like that? Whatever it is, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Even if it's something short, just hey, I love the video, or hey, I didn't like the video. I'm sure you can say that too. I'm just so excited to hear what y'all have to say. That's it. Okay, goodbye. Thank you so much.